Hey everyone, this is Eric at the Schaumburg office for TravelClick, and I wanted to talk to you all today about using branching in SVN with our test and staging server environments. So there are a number of situations whether we're doing customer care work or building features that require sort of isolated code where we want to isolate off and separate off work that we're doing from the regular production code. And it's a fairly easy thing to do with SVN. And the advantages of doing this is that you're not going to disrupt the code that's already in production. And then by using the branch and then with the test and staging servers, you can actually test the code in a public manner, fully test it out, get user acceptance from the customer before it actually gets merged back into the production code and is made live. So we're going to be using our custom premium foundation repo for an example today, and I'm just going to walk you through all the steps that are required to set up the branch that's needed and then set it up on the staging server. So I'm going to navigate to our custom premium foundation branch. And then to create a software branch, all we need to do is right-click on the Tortoise SVN context menu, and then just go to Branch and Tag. So you can see here, I already have this ported out to or set to use a branch that's been set up for a feature we're working on. There are a number that we have available. A lot of these are just demo purposes. A lot of them are actually for different features that are in different stages of development that will be merged back in once they are completed. So trunk is always where our root is. It's where the production code is. And if you think of it, the structure of a tree, trunk is the main, then everything kind of comes off in branches. The logic is a little bit inverted in that usually when we're done with a branch, we merge that code back into the trunk and into the production. So we have a new branch that we've set up. It's the IC Ajax feature. We're working with one of our offshore vendors, Interactive Cozumel, on an Ajax experiment with the code base. So I set a branch up for them to working with their code so that we also have this available to us in the repo when we want to actually try to implement this for demo purposes. So branch has been set up. So all you do basically when you come and want to create a new branch, navigate to branches, and then you can create an actual folder name after the second hash or /. So instead of it being Online Toolbox repos site code name, then trunk, you'd have branches, and then whatever the folder name is that you create. Then you always want to put a comment message in there, just talking about what the operation was. So, creating a branch, and then typically what we do when we create the branch, we always take the head version that's committed to the repository. That's the most recent set of code changes, and then create that. So that's the branch creation process, fairly straightforward. Once you have your branch created, it's going to take a copy of everything that you have in the existing trunk code base to start working with. The idea is that it's basically cloning or copying the site and working on it completely independently. So once that's ready to go, it's sort of the same process as setting up a new site repo in which you have to configure all your files for it to work correctly. There's a few things that are a little bit different in this process in that we're not going to be using production resources, and that we're not using a production server for database or for web. We're going to be using our testing environment, which have their own set of hardware resources and network resources. So in my IDE, I've actually set up the files that need to be created for this. So like any other new site build, you want to create your own comp file for this particular branch. And it's not technically a site code, it's a branch. So the logic is a little weird. If you're used to just working and building site codes, you're actually making kind of a proxy for the Apache server on the testing and production environments to think that it's a site code. So basically what you're doing is just creating the vhost record for that particular name of the site you want to access. on the testing and staging environments. In this case, we have custom premium foundation -Ajax demo, and then it would point to the HTTP docs. And then all the other configs would follow that for the server name, the aliases. You can see here we have a registration for S1, for T1, and we have our root dev site URL, because we also want to point this out to a public-facing IP so we can test things out responsibly on devices. And if this was something we were doing with a production client, they would also be able to view this as well. So everything else is fairly straightforward. You add our different folder routing into the hostmap file for the repo. And then lastly, we also want to update our server INI file. So this has been set up to work with the staging server database server. So you change out the host for that, and then you take a copy of the production database or whatever database you're working with locally, and basically pushing that up to the appropriate database server. So again, this is on S1, on the S1 database server. So if we go to the That's All Folks app interface, step that back for you guys. All the way down to the bottom of the list, there is a database server for the test environment, and there's a database server for the staging environment. So we click on the link, we go right to the staging environment, and you can see here the same process as we do for production site. You just create the database registration for that. So I've already set this up here, and it is good to go. After you set that up, it's a matter of getting the site pushed up to the actual server itself. I'm not able to do this during a PCC window, but I want to talk through some very key steps that are involved with this process. So you log into the server, you run your create site operations, and then that will create all the sort of the skeleton in Apache for the actual website that's going to live on that server. Under a normal production build where you're just using a site code, the scripts will grab everything from that site code and SVN, import everything in, it'll create the conf file, all the necessary symlinks, and all that in a production server environment. The test and staging server environments do not have all of the same shell scripts that we are accommodated to using in a production environment. So there's a few things you have to do manually when setting up a test site off of an SVN branch to make this work. The most key part after you run your create site command is to actually run a command that will map the symlink from the vhost available folder after you've committed an upconf to your vhost file with the correct name. Then it maps it to the enabled folder, which is actually live. If you don't do this when you run your test before you reboot the server, it'll throw an error and the server will come back. So make sure that this is done. This is also in the wiki documentation that is available for this as well. So if you go and type in branching or branch or dev test staging in the dev wiki, all these steps are actually available here for you to do this for both the T1 and the S1 environments. That's virtually the same process. The difference of S1 is that you have access to a public IP address. So, with that, you want to run the symlink creation process. Then you can do your test, which is a little bit different. There's no cluster. It's just a standalone server, so it's just test HTTP conf. And then everything comes up okay after the test. You resolve any issues that don't. You run a restart command. You can do restart HTTPD. The problem is there's no verification or status with that. So we actually want to use the plain vanilla Red Hat prompt for restarting Apache, which is /x/initd/httpd restart, and that'll give you a verbose status like you're used to seeing with production clusters. Once that's done, you're able to go and then actually check out your branch to the new site code that you have created on the test or staging server. And you're going to be using a command line interface for this. For the checkout, there's no shell script. It's just their standard SVN command for checkout. So what you do is you run SVN CO for checkout, and then you grab the full URL of your branch that you're working with, and you map that to the actual HTTP docs folder of the site code you just created, and that will check everything out. Last but not least, you want to run your set permissions. And then you should be good to go. And that will get you to a point where you'll be able to see the site itself on the staging or testing server, depending on where you set it up. So you can see right here, there's a sort of a boilerplate functional website that is available now. This is just the bare bones code that we've set up for our branch. This is all feeding off of the IC Ajax demo branch that we created in SVN, and you're able to work with that just like in the production code by logging into the S1 server. And we can do go. Find our site, and then we can just do SVN update as needed. And that's the whole process with that. The other step with using the staging server, this is only available to S1, is that you can actually use our new DNS tool to set up a site code record for the dev site URL to be available publicly. So if you log into this using your TC prod credentials, you go to your dev site DNS, you want to add a dev site DNS entry, you add the site code in, and then you want to point it to the staging 1 server, which is 199.167.218.107 for that to be public. There is an IP address available for the test server as well, but the intended purpose of the test server is really for that to be used internally between devs and internal stakeholders at TravelClick for testing a particular piece of application or website code. So we really want to reserve the usage of staging for things that we're going to demo publicly with clients and people that are not on our network. So you can see here too, if you go to list dev site entries, and I set this up yesterday during a PCC window. See the actual Ajax demo branch site code set up here, and then there's the actual pointer to the staging server. So once you set up the DNS entry, it takes 2 to 3 hours usually for it to propagate, but after that you should be fine to be able to use this. And then you can just verify that, of course, by just pointing to the actual dev site URL itself, and there it is again. So that's pretty much the entire process in a nutshell. The last bit of it is regarding merging your code back into SVN. And that process is fairly straightforward. I'm going to cover that into a different demo once we have some things to actually show on the site done. So thanks for watching this, and if you need any questions, you can find me on Skype or email me, evecchione@travelclick.com. Cheers.